Authorities say this is not a routine missing person case, and that single detail changes everything. An 84-year-old woman disappears from her own home, and within hours, investigators publicly confirm something rarely stated this early. She did not leave on her own. What led law enforcement to reach that conclusion so quickly is not speculation, not rumor, and not social media theory, but specific findings at the scene that officials describe as deeply concerning. And tonight, as the search intensifies, time is being described as critical. The woman at the center of this investigation is Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, the mother of Today show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie. According to publicly available information from the Pima County Sheriff's Department, Nancy was last seen on Saturday night, January 31st, at her residence in Arizona, near the area of East Skyline Drive and North Campbell Avenue, at approximately 9:30 p.m. local time. By the following day, concern escalated quickly. Family members contacted authorities, and what initially appeared to be a welfare check soon turned into something far more serious. Within a short time frame, the Sheriff's Department launched what they described as an urgent search, mobilizing search and rescue teams, volunteers, and multiple law enforcement units. But then came the moment that shifted the entire case. At a press conference held on Monday, February 2nd, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos addressed the public and confirmed that investigators now believe Nancy Guthrie's home is a crime scene. That statement immediately raised difficult questions. Sheriff Nanos explained that after processing the residence, investigators observed circumstances that were inconsistent with a voluntary departure. According to the sheriff, Nancy Guthrie has significant physical limitations. She reportedly suffers from medical conditions that restrict her mobility and requires regular medication. Medication that authorities say could become life-threatening if missed for more than 24 hours. This detail is critical. Officials emphasize that Nancy is described as being of sound mind, with no cognitive impairments, but that her physical condition would have made it extremely unlikely for her to leave her home alone, especially at night. As Sheriff Nanos stated during the briefing, investigators are confident she did not just walk out of there. That assessment, officials say, is based on multiple observations at the scene, though they have not publicly disclosed specific details, citing the active nature of the investigation. What they did confirm is this: the evidence raised enough concern to formally classify the residence as a crime scene. From that point forward, the response escalated significantly. Search and rescue efforts expanded across the area, involving not only sheriff's deputies, but also criminal investigation teams, door-to-door canvassing, and a comprehensive review of security camera footage and license plate reader data. Sheriff Nanos described a large-scale operation, with approximately 100 Sheriff's Department vehicles involved at various points, working through the night. Importantly, officials stress that this is not limited to a single unit. Detectives from multiple divisions, not only homicide investigators, have been assigned to the case, reflecting the seriousness and complexity of the situation. Throughout the press conference, one phrase was repeated several times: time is very critical. Law enforcement officials explained that Nancy's physical health makes the urgency even greater, especially given the possibility that she may have been exposed to cold weather overnight. Despite the gravity of the situation, authorities were careful to avoid speculation. Instead, they issued a direct appeal to the public. Anyone who may have seen something, heard something, or noticed anything unusual in the area is being urged to contact authorities immediately. Sheriff Nanos made it clear that even information that seems minor could be important. Meanwhile, attention also turned to Nancy's family. Officials confirmed that Savannah Guthrie is currently in Arizona, and that the entire family has been fully cooperative with investigators from the beginning. Additional agencies, including the FBI, have been brought in to assist. On Monday morning, Savannah did not appear on the Today Show. During the broadcast, her colleagues addressed the situation carefully and respectfully, acknowledging the deeply personal nature of the story. Shortly afterwards, Savannah Guthrie released a public statement thanking supporters for their concern and emphasizing that the family's focus remains solely on the safe return of her mother. She also encouraged anyone with information to contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department directly. As of now, officials have not confirmed what Nancy was wearing at the time of her disappearance. They describe her as 5 feet 5 inches tall, approximately 150 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. The investigation remains active, and authorities continue to describe the circumstances as suspicious in nature, while stopping short of drawing conclusions. And that careful language is intentional, because at this stage, investigators are focused on gathering facts, not assumptions. What makes this case particularly unsettling is not just who Nancy Guthrie is connected to, but how quickly authorities concluded this was not a voluntary disappearance. That raises a larger question. What exactly did investigators find at the scene that changed everything? And why are they so confident that she did not leave on her own? What investigators are not saying publicly is often just as important as what they are saying out loud. During the press conference, Sheriff Chris Nanos was asked directly why the home was officially labeled a crime scene. His response was careful, measured, and revealing. He explained that Nancy Guthrie's limited mobility alone made a voluntary departure highly unlikely. But beyond that, he stated there were additional indicators at the residence suggesting she did not leave by choice. Those indicators have not been detailed, and that silence is deliberate. According to law enforcement protocol, disclosing specific evidence too early can compromise an investigation, alert potential persons of interest, or contaminate witness testimony. So instead of specifics, investigators emphasize certainty. "We know she didn't just walk out of there," the sheriff said. That statement carries weight, because in missing person cases involving elderly individuals, especially those with medical challenges, law enforcement often leans towards scenarios such as disorientation or voluntary wandering. Here, they did not. Instead, the department moved immediately toward a criminal investigation framework. Search and rescue teams were still deployed, but now they were accompanied by criminal investigators conducting structured canvassing, not just broad area searches. Teams began knocking on doors. They began reviewing hours of footage from home security systems, traffic cameras, and license plate readers, attempting to reconstruct a timeline of movement in and out of the area during the critical window. This is a labor-intensive process. Sheriff Nanos described the scale of the operation as involving a lot of manpower and a lot of energy, with deputies and detectives working through the night. At the same time, authorities made another important clarification. Nancy Guthrie, they said, is considered to be of sound cognitive mind. There are no indications of dementia or confusion. That distinction matters, because it eliminates one of the most common explanations for disappearances involving older adults: cognitive impairment leading to unintentional wandering. Instead, investigators are operating under the assumption that external factors played a role. Still, officials have been careful to avoid language that would suggest a confirmed outcome. They are not labeling this as a homicide investigation. They are not naming suspects. They are not assigning motives. What they are doing is narrowing the scope and asking for help. The sheriff's department issued repeated appeals to the community, stressing that even seemingly insignificant details could be crucial. A car parked out of place, a door opening late at night, a sound that didn't quite register at the time. All of it matters now. One particularly sobering aspect of the case is the role Nancy's medication plays in the urgency. Authorities confirmed that she requires regular medication and that missing it for more than a short period could have serious consequences. This detail adds pressure, not drama, but reality. It is one of the reasons officials emphasize that they are racing against time. Despite this, the tone from law enforcement has remained controlled and professional. They are not speculating. They are not inflaming fear. They are focusing on process, and that process includes collaboration. In addition to local law enforcement, federal agencies are assisting with resources and analysis. The involvement of the FBI does not necessarily indicate a specific conclusion, but it does reflect the seriousness with which the case is being treated. Throughout all of this, the Guthrie family has remained publicly cooperative. Sheriff Nanos confirmed that Savannah Guthrie and her family have been present, communicative, and supportive of the investigation from the beginning. There has been no indication of conflict or obstruction, something officials often clarify when cases attract public attention. Savannah's public statement echoed that tone. Rather than focusing on speculation, she thanked supporters and law enforcement and emphasized a single priority: her mother's safe return. That restraint is notable. In situations like this, public pressure can escalate quickly, especially when the missing person is connected to a nationally recognized figure. But both the family and authorities have worked to keep the focus where it belongs, on facts, cooperation, and time-sensitive action. Still, questions remain. Why were investigators able to determine so quickly that Nancy did not leave on her own? What specific circumstances at the scene raised red flags strong enough to shift the case from a missing person search to a criminal investigation? And what does suspicious in nature, as described by the sheriff, actually mean in practice? Those answers may not come immediately. Investigations of this kind unfold slowly, piece by piece. Each new detail must be verified. Each lead must be checked. And every public statement must be weighed against the potential impact on the search. For now, what is known is limited, but significant. Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home. Authorities believe she could not have left alone. Time is a critical factor, and law enforcement is asking for the public's help. Which brings us to the part of this story that often determines what happens next. Because in many cases like this, the breakthrough does not come from inside an evidence room, but from one person recognizing something they didn't realize mattered. And that raises the next question. What kind of information are investigators hoping someone out there still hasn't come forward with? When investigators ask the public for help this early, and this persistently, it's usually because they believe someone has already seen or heard something important, even if that person doesn't realize it yet. In this case, the Pima County Sheriff's Department has emphasized that they are not just looking for dramatic encounters or obvious incidents. They are looking for anomalies, something that felt slightly out of place, something that, at the time, seemed easy to dismiss. According to law enforcement officials, the critical window appears to be the hours surrounding Saturday night, when Nancy Guthrie was last seen at her home around 9:30 p.m. Investigators are working to reconstruct that timeline minute by minute: who entered the area, who left, which vehicles passed through, which doors opened, which lights turned on or off. This is why detectives are reviewing home security footage from residents in the surrounding neighborhood, even if the cameras do not directly face Nancy's house. A vehicle driving slowly through a side street, a car making an unusual stop, a pattern that only becomes visible when many small clips are stitched together. At the same time, deputies are conducting door-to-door interviews, not as an accusation, but as a way to gather context. Did anyone hear voices? Did anyone notice movement at an unusual hour? Did a routine suddenly feel different? Law enforcement officials have stressed that they are not assuming intent. They are gathering data, and in complex investigations, data often comes from places no one initially expects. Another detail investigators clarified is that Nancy Guthrie has no known cognitive impairment. That fact continues to shape the direction of the case, because it means investigators are not looking for someone who wandered off confused. They are looking for an explanation that accounts for both her physical limitations and her mental clarity. That narrows the possibilities, but it also raises the stakes. Throughout the press conference, Sheriff Nanos repeatedly used cautious language, phrases like, "based on what we know," and "at this stage of the investigation." This is deliberate. It protects the integrity of the case. It avoids premature conclusions, and it reminds the public that investigations evolve. Officials also addressed a question many people were already asking quietly: whether the classification of the home tape as a crime scene means a specific outcome is assumed. The answer was no. A crime scene designation, they explained, simply means that the circumstances require preservation and forensic review. It does not automatically define what happened. It defines how carefully the scene must be treated. As the search continues, the department has confirmed that search and rescue efforts are ongoing, alongside criminal investigative work. These are not mutually exclusive. One focuses on locating Nancy as quickly as possible. The other focuses on understanding how and why she vanished. Both are necessary. Meanwhile, public attention has intensified. The connection to Savannah Guthrie has naturally drawn national coverage, but authorities have made it clear that this case is being handled according to procedure, not status. The same resources, they say, would be applied to any case with similar indicators. And yet, visibility matters. It increases the chance that someone, somewhere, will recognize a detail that suddenly feels relevant. This is why law enforcement continues to share Nancy's description publicly, even as the investigation grows more complex. She is described as 5 feet 5 inches tall, weighing approximately 150 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. What she was wearing remains unknown. Anyone who believes they may have seen her, even briefly, is encouraged to contact authorities. The department has emphasized that no tip is too small, a passing observation, a memory triggered by coverage, a moment that didn't seem important at the time. All of it could matter now. As of this moment, officials have not released updates indicating a confirmed location or outcome. The investigation remains active, and with each passing hour, the urgency remains. Because this case sits at a difficult intersection, a vulnerable individual, suspicious circumstances, limited time, and a community that may unknowingly hold the missing piece, which leads to the broader issue that cases like this often highlight: how easily ordinary routines can be disrupted, how quickly a familiar place can become uncertain, and how much depends on awareness, not fear, but attention. As investigators continue their work behind the scenes, the public role remains simple but important. Stay observant, share verified information, and if something feels relevant, speak up. This case is still unfolding, and many of the most important questions remain unanswered. What investigators ultimately determine will depend on evidence, timing, and information that may not yet be connected. In the next video, we'll take a closer look at how law enforcement determines when a missing person case crosses into criminal territory, and what specific indicators typically trigger that shift, using only publicly available information and established procedures. If you want to understand how these decisions are made and why they matter, that's where we'll continue.